Good morning. I'm Jim Burris, reporter and host of Weekend Edition for WABE 90.1. We would like to welcome our viewers to the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series originating from the Public Broadcasting Atlanta studios. This is the runoff debate between the candidates for DeKalb County Sheriff. Now let's meet the candidates. They are in alphabetical order. Vernon Jones is a former CEO of DeKalb County, and Jeff Mann is the current sheriff of DeKalb County. Now let's meet our panelist. Jeremy Campbell is a reporter with WXIA TV. Rose Scott is an award-winning journalist and producer for WABE 90.1. And Ernie Suggs is a political reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Today's program will consist of 3 rounds. For more information on the rules for each round, please visit the Atlanta Press Club website at atlantapressclub.org. Well, now let's get started. We will begin the program with our panel asking a question to each candidate. Candidates will then have 60 seconds to answer each question. Ernie Suggs will ask the first question to Vernon Jones.
Okay, great, thank you. Mr. Jones, I guess the basic question is, why do you want to be the sheriff of DeKalb County?
Well, thank you. That is a good question. I love DeKalb County. I have a solid record of accomplishments for making it a better place to live. The sheriff's position is that of a chief administrator, manage the day-to-day resources, manage the people. And as a chief administrator, the largest chief administrator throughout DeKalb County at one time, it's a natural fit. I've also managed a police department twice the size of the sheriff's office. My budget is about $1 billion. The sheriff's office budget is about $75 million. And so I have those administrative skills to manage efficiently and effectively, and certainly to save taxpayers' dollars. That's what makes this position such a natural fit again. There's time for a chief administrator. There's been a lot of issues going on with the jail due to poor management. And my management experience, my expertise, can really bring about change and make it a better place for employees, and make it a better place for the judges and the courts, and certainly manage the taxpayers' dollars in the most efficient and most effective way.
All right, Rose Scott will now ask a question to Jeff Mann.
Sheriff Mann, throughout the campaign, you've talked about being instrumental in restoring the integrity of the sheriff's office. Can you talk about how specifically you've achieved that?
Yes, when we came into office, we found a sheriff's office in disarray. We had gone through a tremendous time in DeKalb County history. Sheriff Brown and I came in, we led by example. We implemented policies and procedures to make sure the employees were treated fairly and consistently. We implemented procedures to ensure that the inmates are treated with dignity and respect. We restored the integrity of the sheriff's office by leading by example. It's been a long time coming in the sheriff's office. We've had a history of the sheriff's office, of sheriffs being investigated, of sheriffs going to jail. This is the first time in modern history where we have been instrumental in making sure that we have ran a sheriff's office with integrity, with respect, with professionalism, with fiscal restraint, and with fiscal responsibility. So those are the things that we've done to make sure that we have restored the integrity of the sheriff's office.
All right, well, that concludes our first round. In the second round, each candidate asks a question to his opponent. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to ask the question, 60 seconds to respond, and 30 seconds for a rebuttal. Jeff Mann, you get the first question.
Mr. Jones, during your tenure as DeKalb County CEO, you were investigated by the DeKalb County District Attorney for sexual assault on a female. You were investigated by the City of Decatur Police for assault on a female commissioner. You were investigated by the grand jury for wasteful spending of thousands of dollars on personal detail. The latest grand jury report has recommended that you be investigated for bid rigging and theft. If you are elected sheriff, how would you allay the citizens' fears that these continuous scandals would not continue?
Thank you so much. First of all, every grand jury investigation, I was completely exonerated, completely cleared. Obviously, there were those who wanted to stop my progressive agenda. But the real issue is the sheriff just talked about how the integrity was restored in the sheriff's office. Well, there are bail bonding companies operating right now with thousands of dollars uncollected forfeitures. There are beatings of inmates in the jail right now by some of the sheriff's cronies and buddies who have been terminated but then brought back in those positions. They have a history of beating inmates. There are his senior executive and himself have ethic complaints against them, where they're using county employees to campaign during county time, and that's an indictable offense. There are a number of issues and challenges, scandals, inmates dying, and the problem is that this sheriff has not been investigated for all the things that he's done. Now, is there a cover-up? Is there a cover-up? If you were investigated and reviewed as much as I was, clearly, I think you and others will be indicted in that jail, and I want to clean it up.
All right, Mr. Mann, you have 30 seconds for your rebuttal.
It is, yes, thank you. It is interesting that the only scandal, the only corruption occurs during in a political election. I've been involved in 4 elections since I've been in the sheriff's office. During this political season, there's always allegations of corruption, scandal. After the election, you don't hear any of that. Because why? There is none. There's no corruption and scandal in the sheriff's office. The only person that's talking about corruption and scandal is my opponent, Mr. Jones.
Vernon Jones, it's now your turn to ask a question of Sheriff Mann.
Okay. First of all, Sheriff, you said that there's been no scandals. Isn't it true that you have 2 ethics complaints against you from 2 former employees that you and the former sheriff were using to do campaign work on taxpayers' dollars at the sheriff's office? They have filed ethics complaints against you. They've asked the district attorney to investigate you. They've asked the attorney general to investigate you. Isn't it true that you have those 2 employees with those accusations and those ethics complaints filed against you?
The only one who's talking about ethics complaints is Mr. Jones. I'm unaware of any ethics complaints filed against me or the agency at all. So Mr. Jones is the only one who is putting out there that there's ethics complaints. I'll tell you, to the extent we are served with an ethics complaint, we will vigorously defend our position. We have not used campaign time or sheriff's office time to require employees to campaign. In fact, I have, throughout my years in the sheriff's office, required and sent out memoranda prohibiting employees from campaigning on DeKalb County Sheriff's Office time and to use DeKalb County Sheriff's Office resources. So no, there has been no complaint. There has been no ethics complaint filed against me, and the only one who is saying that is you, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones, your rebuttal.
Well, obviously, the sheriff has been an invisible sheriff, like he's been on a lot of issues. There are complaints against the sheriff. Channel 2 has reported some of those complaints. It's common knowledge the Ethics Committee has those complaints. It is true that Sheriff Mann has used county employees to campaign during county time. We've witnessed it, using county vehicles. As a matter of fact, I hope he has about 4 county employees that are here today. I hope that they are not on county time. I hope they took time off. There are some scandals going on in the jail. Even the deputies are complaining about what's happening. Bail bonding
All right,
companies.
we have to cut you off there. Thank you, Mr. Jones. For those of you who are just joining us, this is the runoff debate between the candidates for DeKalb County Sheriff. We will now go to the final round. In this round, the panelists will take turns asking a question to the candidate of their choice until we run out of time. I will determine when a rebuttal is appropriate. And Jeremy Campbell, we're going to begin with you.
I'd like to start with a question to both candidates. We've heard a lot of accusations. We've heard a lot about what's wrong with the other candidate. I'd like to hear what you want to do as far as leadership for the county without speaking negatively of your opponent.
First of all, what I want to do is stop bail bonding companies from operating when they owe thousands of dollars of forfeitures. I want to stop employees being at risk because the number of vacancies and the high overtime that the taxpayers are having to burden, as well as all of these lawsuits relative to the beatings at the jail and other mismanagement at the jail. I want to clean that up. Having the experience that I have, managing resources and managing people, we can do it. Almost $2 million was spent in 2013 on overtime because of the vacancies, because employees are leaving in record numbers. There is some mismanagement there. There are many challenges there. I also want to make sure that inmates aren't committing suicide or dying in the jail because there's not enough deputies to do the appropriate rounds. That, and among many other things, as an administrator, we can go and make it more efficient, more effective. And certainly we're not going to use county employees to campaign in county vehicles and to have people going shopping for them and clean their houses as county employees. We're going to stop that. We're going to clean that mess up.
Mr. Mann, would you like to respond?
Yes, again, you know, this is a political season. These are the first time you're hearing allegations about how bad the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office is. You hadn't heard that before this election season began, and you won't hear this after July 22nd. We have, in the past 14 years, received the national distinction of the National Sheriff's Office Triple Crown distinction. What that is holding all 3 national accreditations at the same time. We are one of only 38 of 3,083 sheriff's offices who have obtained and maintained this Triple Crown distinction in the nation. We are in the top 1% of sheriff's offices in this nation. Mr. Jones again talks about corruption, scandal, beatings. He's the only one talking about that. He's the only one during this political season that's talking about corruption. You won't hear that after July 22nd.
Thank you. Ernie Suggs, it is your turn to ask a question.
Well, Mr. Mann, let me ask you directly, and this is for both of you guys. Have there been beatings of inmates and deaths of inmates? And that's for you, Mr. Mann, and for you, Mr. Jones. If that is the case, how will you prevent that as sheriff? So your question is, have there been deaths and beatings?
We have put in place since day one a security surveillance system throughout the entire jail, as well as the courthouse. We spend thousands of dollars, not taxpayer dollars, grant dollars, in making sure that we have video monitoring of our entire facility. We have, and this is for 2 reasons. It's for the protection of the detention officers from unfounded allegations of inmates, but it's also to monitor to make sure our detention officers are following policy and procedure. When they move outside of policy and procedure, we take appropriate and effective action, from retraining to suspension to demotion to termination, and yes, even arrest. We've arrested some of our own detention officers. But those are a small few of the incidents within the jail that have come in place. So there aren't beatings of inmates. When they fall out of policy, we take effective action.
Mr. Jones?
That's part of the problem. My opponent is still covering up all the scandals that are going on in that jail. There are beatings. There's been 3 within the past few months. As a matter of fact, one of the gentlemen who were fired originally for beating the inmate was brought back because he appealed directly to the sheriff to have his job back. And there's still video footage they have not made available where that same inmate or that same deputy has had a history of doing that, where he was choking another inmate. Again, he said it hasn't been reported, it's not going on. That is not true. And one of the things we're going to do is have enough deputies there working so they can make the appropriate rounds to make sure people aren't taking their lives. They've had people there. If they had only had the number of qualified and able and competent people doing their job, enough of them so they can make the appropriate rounds, it wouldn't happen. This is a management issue. And for him to say it's a few casually mentioned when someone's loved one had died, they may be inmates, but they have rights as inmates, and they should be treated with humane and dignity. And the sheriff overlooks that.
Sheriff, I noticed you shook your head when he gave that figure of 3. Do you care to rebut?
Well, I don't know where Mr. Jones is getting his information. Again, it's erroneous information. He's getting it from, I don't know, maybe he's making it up. There have been no incidents, 3 beatings within the past few months. There are incidents. Being a detention officer is a tough job. It's a very tough job. You and I don't want to do it because you're there with 2,700 individuals who don't want to be there and who have nothing but time on their hands to make your life miserable. Our officers are trained to react professionally and responsibly, but it's a tough job. You're getting urine thrown on you, you're getting feces thrown on you, you're getting spat in your face, but you have to sit there and take it and respond professionally. It's a tough job. Yes, just like the police department under his administration is understaffed, we're understaffed, but we've been working hard with the Board of Commissioners to make sure that we have the funding to get sufficient resources to hire more detention officers.
All right, Rose Scott, you may now ask your question.
This question is for candidate Jones. Sheriff Mann, you're more than welcome to chime in. A federal court, candidate Jones, found you and others had created what was considered a hostile work environment. How can you ensure voters that if you are elected sheriff, there won't be a repeat of that or allegations of that again?
In all fairness, I guess you didn't check the record. The first round, 2 of the complainants, their lawsuit was thrown out. The remaining 2, which was a small amount, we appealed it. Their lawyers wanted them to settle and not go forward with it. If you check the record under Judge Duffy's order, there is nothing against me. There is no judgment against me. I was completely cleared on it. And so the record speaks for itself. Fact of it is, what is happening in that jail is that inmates are being beaten. There are bonding companies that are operating that owe thousands of dollars. They got the money to contribute to his campaign, but they cannot pay their court fines. Judges, you can judge over recorder's court, sent a letter to the sheriff asking them, telling them that these people are not paying their fines. There are inmates that are being beaten. There are tapes they still have not released of chokings in the jail. And I hope if I'm elected sheriff, we will clean that up, we will restore integrity. Just because you're an inmate doesn't mean that you're not supposed to be treated with humanity. And for the deputies, they are leaving, they're complaining. They even said themselves that the last inmate that died about a week ago was because there was not enough deputies doing their job there.
And Sheriff, I believe Rose opened the question to you as well.
Right, and continuing with that, because there still is a perception and allegations of a work environment where there's low morale, and there possibly could be allegations of a hostile environment. If you are reelected as sheriff, can you ensure voters that that will change, or that perception will change?
Well, that perception has been created by the candidate Jones. We don't have a morale perception in the DeKalb County Jail. We just underwent in the fall of last year reaccreditation under our American Correctional Association process. Those reviewers found, they spoke with hundreds of detention officers. They spoke with hundreds of inmates. And what they found was a well-run organization. What they found was morale was high. You don't have to take my word for it. You can read the report for yourself. They found that the detention officers were knowledgeable, they were enthusiastic, and they were very excited to be working in the sheriff's office. So the perception is being created by candidate Jones. The reality of the fact is that the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office has been and is a well-run organization and will continue to be.
Jeremy Campbell of 11 Alive, we go to you.
Mr. Jones, you've held a lot of leadership positions, county level. Why do you want to be sheriff?
Well, I see my tax dollars being wasted. $2.1 million in overtime from last year due to the fact that employees are leaving because they're not being paid adequately. When I see bail bonding companies that are allowing these perpetrators to continue to be at large, jeopardizing people's safety, and at the same time they owe thousands of dollars, and the judge make it known to the sheriff's department, and the sheriff allows them to still write bonds. When I see inmates dying in that jail merely because it's mismanagement and they don't have enough employees to do the appropriate amount of rounds to save that person's life, I am troubled by that. I am troubled by the corruption when you see bail bonding companies making contributions to his campaign and using employees, county employees, to put on the events and the other types of political activities, and seeing deputies, seeing them driving county cars and seeing them doing campaign work on taxpayers' dime. There's something inherently wrong with that, and I would not stand around and see my county go down on mismanagement at Sheriff's Office.
Ernie Suggs of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, your turn.
Yeah, I want to ask this to both candidates. With this being kind of an open seat with Sheriff Brown stepping down, what is your on-the-street level experience in law enforcement for both of you all? Because you're on the street level of law enforcement.
I started out as an assistant county attorney in the DeKalb County Law Department, representing the police department, public safety, and the sheriff. I did that for 8 years. When Sheriff Brown was elected sheriff, he asked me to come and be his in-house legal advisor. I did that for the following 4 years. When his chief deputy left to be DeKalb County Police Chief, he asked me to move into the role of the chief deputy managing the day-to-day operations of the sheriff's office. I have not worked the streets as a police officer, as a beat officer, but the position of sheriff is an executive position. It requires some level and understanding and appreciation of law enforcement, but it's an executive position.
Would you care to offer that to Mr. Jones?
Yes.
I've had to pick a police chief. I've had to run the police department twice the size of the sheriff's office. I've had to run a bigger budget, manage more resources. At the same time, when I was in office, crime was down. This sheriff was handpicked by the previous sheriff. And the only reason why he's running as an incumbent is because the law was changed specifically for him to get in office. He was not picked by the people. And when you look at his experience, he was just no one in particular with any background in managing any large organization at all, but merely because he was friends with the sheriff brought him over there. Now, I want the people of DeKalb County to look at who has true chief executive experience. He's only been in the position for about 8 months, although he said he's been managing for the past 13 years. That means all the challenges at that jail, all the scandals, employees being used to campaign during the time they're working at the county. At the same time, you're seeing inmates dying. You're seeing mismanagement of taxpayers' dollars with the record amount of overtime and the vacancy and the morale low in that department. It takes a chief administrator to manage that operation.
Rose Scott of WABE News, your question.
It actually is for both of them as well, and I'll start with Sheriff Mann. We've heard a lot about the issues. What is the exact #1 priority that needs to be addressed in the Sheriff's Department? What is the #1 priority?
The #1 priority for me is to make sure that our detention officers in the jail division are paid a rate that's commensurate with the work that they do. We have one of the largest jails in the metro area, and yet our detention officers are paid among the least. I am happy to report that I've had discussions with the current CEO and the Board of Commissioners recently, and we have agreed they would fund the budget of the Sheriff's Office to allow for me to provide an 8% increase for our detention officers. So that's the #1. Again, it's a tough place to work. Pay is one reason why individuals are leaving. The fact that it's a tough place to work is another reason why they are leaving. So if we were able to get the pay up and get the staffing up and to pay them for the work that they do, that's my #1 priority.
And Mr. Jones.
You know, he said that he was a chief deputy for the past 8 to 13 years. Not a single time did he lobby the commissioners for an increase for those employees. But at the same time, he was going back and